Harold Ruijters is the director of DG Move, European Commission, whose boss was on earlier. He's not stolen all your thunder, I think. You'll still have plenty to say. Oh, yes. And then we have Volker Mornhinweg, who is the chairman of the ACEA LCB committee, but also, in his real life, executive vice president of Mercedes-Benz Vans. Next to him, we have Marc Vanhoutte, who is the bus fleet director for Transdev. Marc is the e-bus solution manager with the group. Transdev, if you don't know it, French-based international public transport operator operating in 19 countries, I think I saw. Then we have Hakan Agnevall, who is the chairman of the ACEA Bus and Coach Committee and president of Volvo Bus Corporation. So welcome to you. And Ivo Krey, who is the Deputy Director of Polis, which is a network of European cities and regions who you're cooperating for innovative transport solutions. So we've got a really kind of good range of speakers, I think, in this one. So, who shall I start with? Volker. Yeah. Mornhinweg. Mornhinweg. Tell us a little bit. So tell us about vans. That's your area. I mean, where do you see the future? What's the split in terms of conventional powertrain and other powertrains at the moment? And how do you see urban life and vans developing?
Maybe first of all, I have to start to explain what is a van. Maybe you saw some of them already outside, and we are really working extremely to get it across to the European Commission what is a van, because currently, Director General Hendricks mentioned it, that currently we got the first proposal from the European Commission regarding the future of CO2 emission targets, which has to be achieved, and there we are together with the PES cars. Yeah. And as a result of that, we have a really big challenge. Maybe I have to explain that a little bit later on in detail, that it is well understood. But first of all, a van is, you can say, a tool for a lot of small and medium-sized businesses in Europe. Last year, we sold roughly 1.7 million units here in Europe. That's, I would like to say, quite a bit. It's not that huge as PES cars, but I would like to say not too bad. And especially when it comes to the transportation of goods and people within cities and among cities, I think it's the appropriate, in urban areas, the appropriate transport system, I think, which we have. But as I said, it's a tool for our customers, and our customers, how should I say, they have to earn money with our tool, with our vans, and they are running their business. It's not just a product to drive for fun to A and B, it's a real tool.
But what sort of market and demand is out there for alternative powertrains?
The issue is that I can tell you in the meantime, currently it's roughly 96% of the whole vans are, how should I say, the powertrain is a diesel engine, because the diesel engine is extremely efficient. It supports, you know, the TCO, because they are really keen to have a low TCO costs, you know, because the diesel, as I said, is very efficient, and the how should I say, the need of the diesel is quite good. On the other hand, it's reliable. It's very sustainable, and especially now with the new Euro 6 diesel engines, I think we achieved a good level when it comes, on one hand, to the CO2 emissions, on the other hand, fuel consumption, on the other hand, when it comes to the emissions, when it comes to the NOx. Therefore, that's the current status. What we see for the future, that especially when it comes to the last mile, in the inner circle of a city, electric-driven vans, I think, is a very appropriate powertrain, because the range is not that long, and especially when it comes to the last mile, the courier express and parcel services, it's extremely, how should I say, predictable. What they had to drive per day, that means we can really build up a kind of a efficient system, because the range is not that long. It's roughly, how should I say, 70 to 80 kilometers, maybe the longest maybe 100 kilometers, and therefore we can really also implement, how should I say, not that high capacity of a battery, which is extremely expensive, and also we have to put for higher distance, a lot of battery capacity in, then our customers, they will lose payload. And this is something what, how should I say, this is not in their favor because they, as I mentioned already, they are here to make business.
So,
that's all about.
So electric makes sense for the last mile. So let's turn to buses now. Hakan Agnevall from Volvo. So you're operating your buses in an urban setting mainly. So what about diesel versus electric then? Where do we stand and how do you see the future?
I mean, electric is going to be one of the major ways forward in city transport. But I think, as we pointed out here before, there will not only be one solution, not even in city. There will be a couple of different ones, because every city has different, they're operating in a different context, if it's a mega city, if it's a medium-sized city and so forth. So we are very careful from our side to say that's only be one solution, both medium-term and long-term. But I do agree, and as Volvo, we have taken a significant bet that electric buses city buses will be one of the major solutions going forward.
How difficult was that when you say that there will be lots of solutions, but you had to make a decision as a company? Was that a difficult decision or was it an obvious decision?
Well, I think we made the decision almost 10 years ago, and then it was far from obvious. I think with the current discussion, the development the last 2, 3, 4 years, it's becoming more and more obvious, and we are feeling more and more confident.
Oh, and you're feeling very pleased through the sales.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, but it is, and I think it's a challenge for the whole industry, for the OEM side, because each driveline technology is very expensive to develop. You invest a lot of money, you put in a lot of effort, and it's very important to make the right strategic bets.
And so, I mean, we're talking about the technology neutrality that both a lot of the industry wants to see and the European Commission. But if we're talking about the urban setting, would it not make sense actually to, you're both now saying that electricity seems to work be the best bet in an urban setting. Would it not make sense to actually say this is the way we're going ahead and push for one technology?
As I said, it's too simplistic. I mean, in the mega cities of the world, it's not clear that everything is going to be electric. It's not even clear that everything should be Euro 6. I mean, it could be Euro 5.
Yeah.
It could be. So the world is a big place, and we have to acknowledge that. And now we are sitting here in a European context. But if we take a global context, as I said, we need to be careful to prescribe that there is just one solution, because it will be different.
Okay.
If we take from a European perspective, I personally think that I mean, electric buses is a major way forward in Europe for sure.
Let's bring Marc Vanhoutte in, because as a bus operator, I mean, I know you're involved in lots of electric. Well, I don't know lots, but several big electric bus projects in the Netherlands, for instance. So what's your take on how the whole bus market is developing?
Let me tell you as an introduction, we have today 43,000 buses in operation worldwide on each continent, 19 countries, like you said. We have 500 electric buses, all different modes, from trolley to hydrogen to opportunity charging, overnight charging. Small vehicles, bigger vehicles, articulated buses. We have them in operation, so we are the biggest electric bus operator. I don't talk about China because I don't know what's happening there, how much each operator has, but I think we are, at least in Europe, the biggest one. We have been talking about technological neutral. This is not the case because we are a commercial company. We cannot come with electric vehicles when the authorities are not asking this. Otherwise, we would give an offer and we would be out of competition. Yeah, that's one thing. Another thing, it's moving forward in the Netherlands because it's not costing anything more to the authorities. So they give a subsidy which you get on a yearly basis, and now we have to do it with electric buses. In those countries where we can charge the cost to the customer, to the client, so they are more reluctant. So it's moving forward a lot in the Netherlands because of that reason. Of course, they help us with other measures which are not costing them and make it possible for us to depreciate the vehicles over a longer period. There are some other measures that saying that when the contract is finished, you can transfer the vehicles to the next operator at residual cost. So this is things that are helping us. But if you don't spend as an authority more money, it's easy to say you have to come up with electric vehicles. And that's what's happening in the Netherlands.
And on an operational level, what do you observe if you're using alternative powertrain?
Well, first, I already talked about overnight charging and opportunity charging. People say, what do you choose? Well, the choice is obvious. If you have only, let's say, 100, 150, 200 kilometers to run a day, you can have a vehicle with overnight charging during the night, 5-6 hours, and then running that operation during the day and charging again the next night. But for example, we have 43 electric articulated buses running in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and there we have to run 350 kilometers a day, that's one thing, and we still need a high capacity of passengers. So then you cannot go for overnight charging. So there we do opportunity charging. And what we see is that the tender processes today are not fit for such operations. So we managed to find a solution. But for example, opportunity charging, if you want to do it on the street, then you have to talk to another authority, to the city, because in the Netherlands, the authority is not the city. The transport authority is the region, is the province. Yeah? So then you have to go to the city and to say, look, I would like to have opportunity charging on that place. Can I do that? Am I allowed to do that? And then you have to talk to the energy supplying company. Can I get a connection to the grid with the power I need on that place? And what will it cost? And this you cannot do in the 4 or 5 months that you get to prepare your offer. And that's what's happening today. They did it with diesel. And with diesel, what did we do? We looked for the timetables and we went to the manufacturers and we were asking a price. And that's what it was. But with electric buses, you cannot do this. So we are very fortunate in Eindhoven that we have our depot at 1.5 kilometers from the railway station, where also the bus station is, which is a hub. And all the electric buses today are starting there and ending there. So after 3 hours of operation, we bring them back for 1.5 kilometers and we charge in our depot. But we see now we're going to start in December with a new operation around Schiphol, the airport in the Netherlands, where we have to start a new fleet of 300 buses with 100 buses, articulated electric buses. Those buses will run more than 100,000 kilometers a year, which is very good for electric buses because that's the only thing that is cheaper for the moment is the energy cost. Yeah, so that's very good. But on the other hand, we see that we will delay the electric buses for 4 months because the authorities proposed, well, they offered to make the connection to the grid on 2 parking places where the people park their cars to go to the airport, and it is not ready. So it will be delayed. What is the problem? You need to have a permit to do that. Then they start installing the line, and then they see there is pollution. Then they have to do another procedure to clean it up, and it takes time. And you have 4 or 5 months to prepare a tender, and then you have 6 to 7 months to start it up.
Well, I mean, all these procurement issues we will talk about. Did you want to just come in briefly, Hakan?
No, just quickly on this, how to evaluate the new technology and being technology neutral. I think very much supported putting in requirements for reduction of emission and reduction of noise, because today we often end up in a discussion about what is the cost for traditional diesel technology versus alternative technologies, and when we do the evaluation, we miss out the strong benefits of the alternative technology, the environmental benefits, the air quality. I mean, London, close to 10,000 people are dying from poor air quality, and is there a value to those lives? Of course. So that is also an enabler for the change to happen, that we monetize some of the real values of the alternative technologies.
Okay, thank you. Can I just bring in Ivo Krey first of all, because I mean, what comes through again and again is how powerful now cities can be in actually really pushing policy changes in a way that they haven't done before. But just for anyone who doesn't know Polis, can you just briefly just tell us what you do?
We do a lot, so I'll try to be brief. No, we are a
really
network of 70 cities and regions working on transport innovation. We've been around for 25 years or more, and we are the network working on innovation aspects. So we're very involved in research, in framework program projects, and we're also a bit the interface between cities and industry and research for several topics, and clean vehicles is one of these topics.
But I mean, when we see that cities with diesel bans or suggesting that internal combustion engines will be banned in the future, I mean, it's a major element, isn't it, in pushing forward development of alternative power chain?
Yeah, I would like to distinguish really clearly between two aspects. We have cities who try to solve current actual problems by means of low emission zones, for instance, so to really comply with European legislation on air quality. So that's one story. These are activities that also have been going on for several years already, but it's also a practice that is increasingly taken up by cities as knowledge grows and problems don't decrease. And then there is, of course, a category of cities who indeed gives a long-term perspective, a nudge, let's say, towards industry, towards operators on their road networks, about how the future will look like in 15 years, for some cities like Oslo already in 10 years. And that's, of course, it's a completely other, it's related discussion, but it's another discussion, I think. What you need to be aware of is that the cities like Paris, for instance, who make these statements, they are discussing these in global panels like C40. Also London is a panel, and there's somebody of London here in the room, is part of C40. So that should actually worry us, the fact that at an international level, or should concern the industry, that in an international logic, it starts to become a normal step to say by 2030, 2035, 2040, we will ban certain fuels from our roads. Whereas the average European city is not having that level of discussions. So that's one aspect that really should be an alert to us. The fact that there's a global conscience growing about this issue that points in that direction.
And how, in making those bold statements, which of course play wonderfully well, of course, with the public, because that's what we want, but realistically, how much is the industry considered in that? Because, you know, is industry ready? Can industry be ready to take on such challenges?
Well, I think I think it's more. I think that the concern should be more at the fact that entire countries like France, for instance, or regions like the Walloon region, or other countries like Norway, that they give statements about technology choices. That is, I mean, in terms of legal powers, that's much more. That goes much further than what a city can manage, or the impact on industry and on operators is much bigger, of course, if a country gives such a statement. But it is true that in the media, for instance, or on Twitter, and an announcement of a diesel ban of a city is much more sensitive, apparently, than a statement of a government who says by 2040 we don't sell this type of technologies anymore. So that's quite. I find that very, very strange.
And Herald, so when you see what's going on at that sort of level in terms of local authorities with their power, they're almost overtaking anything that on an urban level that the Commission could do with any of its proposed CO2 levels. I mean, the work is being done for you in a way.
In a way, perhaps yes, but I think that's good. I mean, also in the previous panels, we said we should leave also the market to decide and make certain choices. But I think that the rollout of alternative infrastructure and fuel will start from the cities, because there is where you have the users and there where you have also the clients. And so I think if we have rollout of alternative infrastructure, it will start from urban. But I mean, also to link back a little bit to the previous panel, I mean, what I think is a discussion that we have been having for years is this chicken or egg. I mean, we have the, let's say, the technologies, but we don't have the infrastructure available, people don't buy. So me also as a person, would I buy already that vehicle, even if it would be available in cities? We also need it along the corridors, because in the weekend or whatever I go also on a longer stretch. So bit by bit we need that rollout of alternative fuel infrastructure. And as Hendrik also said, we want to stay fuel neutral for the moment. So we are putting money in projects already for a long time through grants in hydrogen, in electric, fast charging, ultra fast charging, in LNG and methanol and all kind of alternative fuels. And we are doing that, I think, quite efficiently. We have dozens of projects already for quite a number of years, and we have different instruments for that. We have grants through our CEF. I mean, I would invite IRU to come and have a discussion with me, because he was saying there's no money for that available, but on the contrary, I can say we have quite a bit available, and I would be inviting also IRU to make full use of the ongoing blending call with 350 million, because I would like that call to be oversubscribed as much as previous calls. So IRU, you're welcome to visit me, please. We have blending, which is a component of grants and of instruments, financial instruments. We have guarantees with the European Investment Bank, and of course, ultimately, you will have loans. And through these different elements, we can address, I think, all of the different sectors that are around in Europe. That's what we're trying to do as well. I mean, I don't see a gap in there. I think we have enough instruments available to be sure that we address this chicken or egg question. I want to get rid of that in the coming, let's say, 10 years. And we are quite active not only with, let's say, these instruments, but also with advisory and standards. Because in the end, it's quite difficult to set up such projects. So we have a LINA facility with the European Investment Bank, with our energy colleagues. We have a clean bus initiative where we try to, with cities, to gather, let's say, the volume needed for having higher turnover of vehicles. So quite a number of initiatives that are actively there.
Yeah, I can say we're actually really excited of everything that's on the table. It's the thing that it's really the first time in history that the pieces of the puzzle are there, but we need to coordinate, I think. And of course, there is an issue of industrial policy, and cities are not European industrial policy makers. So indeed, you make the reference, like, do you understand what is your impact on industry? But Actually, we don't, and we want to learn what the impact is. We want to map that, and I think we have an event next week together with ACEA and UCAR and AirTrack to understand, to have a dialogue on access restrictions in cities, to really understand in both directions what is this causing.
Right. Marc.
I get the impression that it's all very easy. You have a lot of money available, but the problem is, again, when we apply for a tender, the money that is available should be included in the tender. Because we cannot say we're going to get money from Europe, an amount of money, we cannot ask for it if we haven't won the tender yet. And if we won the tender, so it is not in the business plan, and if we won the tender, then we have to see if we can get it.
So this is a different sort of chicken and egg in a way, yes.
So in fact, what I'm saying, and I say it yesterday, I was in Germany with UITP Industry Committee. There was someone from the European Bank that talked to the PTAs, and that's what you have to do too. It should be included. And Amsterdam, not the city, the region below, so around Schiphol, they did it. We got a loan for 100 million. Okay, we have to pay the money back, but it was included in the contract, in the tender document. So this is what you should do. Also with subsidies, that you can get loans and subsidies, it should be included. Because we have a very negative experience. Like I said, we will have 100 electric articulated vehicles running beginning next year. We will have 266 in total against 2020 in the same operation. We have cars that can pick up people, so from door to door electric transport. We asked for subsidies, and we were not allowed to get them because we missed 1 point somewhere in the evaluation. So this is also something in the air castles a bit. Nevertheless, you have good intentions, so I don't blame you, but it should be included in the tender, so that the PTA propose this with a guarantee from you that the one who is winning the tender will get that money. And then you get another business model.
Hakan, you wanted to come in?
Building on that comment, I think EIB has a key role to play, and I think they're really trying to do a great job. I mean, EIB is very used to rail financing. Rail financing, huge projects. The challenge for EIB is bus financing. It's a lot of small projects. And simply to handle that administration, that step needs to be taken, because the financing needs to be in place for the tenders. And it's going to be a lot of small projects, which should actually be benefit to have, it's less risk to have a lot of small projects. But that needs to, and that you could say it's just an administrative data, but it's a critical administrative data.
Did you want, sorry, Volker, no.
The only thing what it works. In addition to that, what I already mentioned, I think when it comes to the inner circle of a city, I said the last mile is one of, how should I say, the first industries where it makes really sense to have these alternative powertrains, the electric ones. But we shouldn't forget that this is just, how should I say, maybe all over 10% of the whole LCV, the whole van market. That means that's a starting point. This is something what we shouldn't forget. I have a bit the feeling that the politicians or the governors of the city, they think, oh no, let's go for it. Everything should be electrified. We can put some diesel bans in place and so on because it's easy to do. To be honest, that's a wishful thinking because it will never work. It will really, to some extent, stop the whole industry. Bans never really, how should I say, evolve a society to the next level. I never experienced that, to be honest. But I think we understood the message. And as I said, and we can also, and we saw it already maybe out there where the whole van industry showed their vans, we have electric ones there. But as I said, it's for the last mile. It's the range is round about 100 kilometers. That's the current status for a while because the costs are that extremely high. And as I also mentioned already, our customers, they are making, business with our, how should I call it, tool. Therefore, we have to be careful. And once again, I think the diesel will be also in the future the backbone of our industry. Because our industries, our customer, not only, how should I say, driving around the church and the inner circle of a city, they have to drive in and out, deliver goods and their craftsmanship stuff and people in and out to a city. Therefore, we have to be a bit more, how should I say, open-minded. One thing is also clear, we take it serious as an industry because have a look, the newest Euro 6 emission standards which we have to achieve are also quite challenging, but we invest a lot in that technology. We will even invest more for the new real driving emission requirements which we have to fulfill, the new WLTP requirement which we have to fulfill. That's really a bit of a thing which is not a kind of a walk in a park, just do it. It's a hell of a work to get that done. Therefore, I think we have to be a little bit more, how should I say, realistic. We understood it. We will innovate, there is no doubt about, but we have to think about in which kind of industry it makes sense, because to be honest, there is some business behind. This is something what we shouldn't forget.
And how significant is it for the established players in the market, like you are, when you see the sort of the new entrants, for instance, DHL, these street scooters and startups all coming in and going down the electric route because it's the new sexy thing, sort of thing. I mean, is this changing the market in any way or pushing in any one direction?
To be honest, at the final end, you need the customer. Extremely important. Because we introduced already in the year of 2011, now I'm talking as the head of Mercedes-Benz Vans, we introduced an electric-driven product for the last mile because we were totally convinced for this kind of a challenge, the EV is a perfect product. But at that time, unfortunately wise, the industry didn't pick it up because they had a lot of fears. The infrastructure was not there. Okay, we can discuss for the next 10 years. Chicken and egg, syndrome, what is it? But at the final end, it was as it was. I personally made the experience. It didn't work out. And now companies like the German Post, Street Scooter, you mentioned, okay, they had done especially for their requirement, this was a kind of a target they put into their strategy. They said, I will do something really very specific for my specific kind of a business. They had it done, good, fine. We are in the whole industry, and we saw it already, have products there. We can also deliver it to the last mile companies, but as I said, we have to get the customers convinced that they step into the technology, that they, how should I say, throw the fears away. And once again, it's really very important. And it will only work when we as an industry will get it done in that way that when it comes to total cost of ownership, the delta between among combustion engine and electric-driven product should be 0. Then I think, and when we have some how should I say, infrastructure there, then I think it will move forward. And I see some hope that it will work in that direction.
Okay, Hakan, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, and I'm coming back. I mean, on the theme of there is not one solution fits all. I think we also need to move into a discussion where we have the granularity that city transport of goods and people, that is one set of technologies that are feasible given that application. And then the long haul, that's a different application. I mean, that there is one technology that suits everything. I think we need to move beyond that point. And this should not be as a sign that the European bus and coach industry is on defensive. I think many of the European bus and coach players, they are a cutting edge technology in all, I mean, many of the alternative and for sure also in the diesel. So we are coming much more from, you know, technologies of the future. They need to be sustainable from an environmental perspective, from a financial perspective, and from a social perspective. So let's have a sensible approach. Let's utilize new technology where it will really benefit society, but there is not one solution fits all.
I'll come to you, Ivo. Okay. Just put your hand up if you'd like to ask a question. So yes, Ivo.
Yeah, and I understand that also the frustration in the neutral sense of the word sits at the interface, so that the long distance operators entering cities, that they face the issues. For coach, for instance, we understand the problems really well. Cities are developing schemes and are talking to operators to understand the issues. And also there, Horizon 2020 opens research next year on options, fuel options for coach, because there's really a gap in the technology development. I just wanted to highlight one thing about the fact that cities are unique. There is indeed some kind of an energy footprint or a local energy ecosystem that you need to take into account. For instance, German cities who have their own Stadtwerke, who produce electricity themselves, might be more entitled to then sell electricity to their own bus company, and there is an interaction. But also on hydrogen, for instance, there's really a big community in Europe, and Mr. Ruijters knows about that, in the fuel cell and hydrogen joint undertaking. A large group of cities, cities you would not imagine that they look into this, but really going to buy and put on the roads fuel cell buses. Yeah.
I would like to comment on the fuel cell buses. It's a very, very complex. No. It's a very nice technology, but today, like hydrogen is made, it's not sustainable. For 1 ton of hydrogen produced, you produce 9 tons of CO2 with the system that hydrogen is made today. Of course, the alternative is to make hydrogen by electrolysis. Yeah, and there, of course, as the electricity is sustainable, then it is green. But then you need, and that has been told to me by an energy supplier, is that the energy needed to drive 1 hydrogen bus could drive 3 electric buses. So it's not efficient. Yeah? And of course, the advantage is that with a fueling station for hydrogen, you can make the hydrogen at the spot, because you have water and you have electricity. But it is expensive, and in this way, it will stay expensive. I just heard this week about someone who told me that a company is driving with hydrogen because they could recuperate waste hydrogen. In some processes, you have hydrogen as a byproduct. And there they buy, instead of 10 to 13 euros per kilogram, they buy it at 3.5 euros per kilogram. It's sustainable because it's not additional CO2. And on the other hand, then it's cheaper. And then you have a business case. But you have to be careful. I like very much the technology. It's reverse electrolysis you do on board. But it's not something that you can put on a high scale, on a big scale.
We have a question here, if we have a microphone, please. Just down here, please. Does anyone else want to ask a question?
Willy Tomboy from Recharge, the Battery Association. It's just a small comment that I'm very happy to hear that finally in this whole debate, also the question of LCA and environmental impact and people's health is coming into the picture. Because when I hear people talk about diesel will still be the technology in 2030, 2040, I'm getting a little bit anxious for the health and safety of my grandchildren. So I think that is very happy to hear that there are some people with a vision in this group.
But just, I mean, I'm not going to be an apologist for diesel, but just, I mean, diesel Euro 6, I'm told, tell me, who can tell me about diesel? That
I want to say something about this, because I'm also participating in the UITP, in the bus committee and in the industry committee. And at a certain moment, we had a work group around the Clean Vehicle Directive. And at a certain moment, we understood that Euro 6 would be banned. Euro 6, sorry to say, but it's a clean technology. Of course, in the city, I very much agree that you would go for electric, which doesn't mean that you have to enter the city electric. So that what Hakan is saying. We see, for example, that in the Netherlands, the national government has decided with the Green Deal, which has been agreed with all the provinces, which are the PTAs, and the 3 cities which have their own public company, that everything should be electric. So to give you an idea, everything must be electric before 2030. And from 2025 on, you will not buy any vehicle anymore with a combustion engine. So no gas, no LNG, no LPG, no nothing, just pure electric. Nevertheless, it's a country which is very much suitable for hybrids. A combination of an Euro 6 diesel engine for outside the city and coming in the city on a pure electric basis. Why? Because our city operation in Eindhoven, for example, they run more than 70,000 kilometers a year, while in other cities in Europe you do 40, 45, maybe 50,000. So we do more, and even at Schiphol we will do more than 100,000. So this is a possibility, and it has been banned by the authority. On what basis? Yeah? On the other hand, if we go to the complete electrification of the country, so it's not only the cities, it's a very dense country, population I should say, but on the other hand, it will cost 3 to 3.5 billion euros to do that. And the question is, and then we come to another problem, who is all going to finance this? So if you see what we spent now in Eindhoven to be able to set up that operation, and we committed ourselves to have the complete fleet before the 1st of January 2025 on electric, which is more than 200 vehicles. The rest will be 12 meters and a few smaller vehicles. But the risk is that at a certain moment, if the operator has to invest the whole thing, the vehicles and the charging equipment and everything else, at a certain moment, nobody will answer a tender anymore.
And the actual electric power is made from what? I mean, how much?
Yeah, but they don't they don't talk about it. We see in this country. I'm born in this country, so here there are the big issues about banning nuclear. Yeah. In other countries, they already did that, and then how they make electricity. Yeah, if you look to Germany and look to the Netherlands, it's not so clean.
No. Volker, you wanted to come in?
In addition to that, what you said, if I got you right, you are in the battery industry, right? Okay, then I understand your statement, first of all. Second, I have to say, and that's proven in the meantime, the new Euro 6, how should I say, regulation, which there is no doubt about, it has to be fulfilled. There is nothing against to say it, and it's in the meantime proven that these are really very clean products, which we will have there in the future. And as I said, with the new regulations, WLTP, it's much more realistic when it comes to the, how should I say, normal kind of driving on the roads, which was in the past different. But okay, that was the regulation in the past. We can't change it. It's history. In the future, we will have it differently. Same when I already mentioned the real driving emission will be then targets in place. Therefore, I think I see no reason why we should suddenly stop these high efficient kind of powertrain, which we can also achieve. And that's a very important, how should I say, cornerstone to achieve the CO2 emissions now till 20 and for sure also in the future. As I said, we will step into the electric, but it has to be done smart. It cannot be like if you run down a cliff and that's it. We have to do that smart.
Herald, I mean, we know that there are going to be new proposals for CO2 in buses and trucks. So, I mean, can you give us a bit of an insight as just how draconian they're going to be?
No, I don't think so.
done?
I mean, the already proposal that came now was also quite debated, and we had tried as a commission to make a balanced proposal, and not only to have a proposal on CO2, but also to accompany it with the other measures that we have been proposing on the Clean Vehicle Directive, so for the procurement, and to have also that kind of not only push and pull of the two sides, and also the alternative fuels. So again, I mean, we think that it is quite balanced. We know, of course, that it is not easy to get those kind of grants out of the instrument, or perhaps guarantees or other instruments. But we hear very clearly, whether it's the transport sector or the energy sector, that there is still a need to bridge until the moment that it would be self-running and that the market will make its own choices. We need to be helping out still for a certain number of years. When I talk to big energy companies or to transport companies, it would be useful to still accompany, sometimes with grants, sometimes with blended grants, or with guarantees, until the technologies will be self-running and could go to the EIB for loans in the traditional sense of the word. And we are there to do that and also to accompany it. And when I hear you that it is very difficult and that you sometimes fail, yes, I mean, that is happening. Our calls are oversubscribed 4 to 5 times. So we have 70 to 80% of all people who come to us who then are not selected necessarily. But we're there to repeat those kind of exercises and to provide you also with a certain guarantee that you can be successful. And we think it's necessary. So we are there to help and to make sure that we bridge these years of uncertainty in all fuel neutrality, whether it would be electric or whether it would be hydrogen or others. I mean, the example you gave, I mean, I see the example of Bolzano, where they have, of course, white power, so hydrogen fully available at very low cost, and there you have a fleet of buses which is there and which is also made available to other users. So yes, indeed, I mean, a lot of work to be done, but we think on a very good basis.
Thank you. We have a question here from our friend from Volkswagen.
Yeah, thank you. Susanne Leifert from BW Commercial Vehicles. First of all, thank you for a statement from the Netherlands for Euro 6 diesel. That's quite unusual. But I think we have to draw a bigger picture, not only talking about electrifying like passenger cars or commercial vehicles. I know it's a powertrain option conference today, but still I think we have to look at all the tasks we are facing in cities, like having CO2 alliances from the cities, being climate neutral by 2040 or by 2050. We have the NOx situation in a lot of cities not fulfilling the air quality directive. We have the discussion about ACEA, like well-to-wheel analysis for probably for cars or for all commercial vehicles and cars as well. So I think we have to face a lot of tasks in the future, and in my point of view, talking only about electrifying the compulsions is not enough. I think we have to cooperate in the cities with the cities and the OEMs and all other stakeholders in the story. I think that's the solution for the future, and not only talking about electrifying the cars or whatever.
You're totally right, but so far we discussed about powertrains. That's the topic of today, but you are totally right, because when it comes to the traffic flow, I think there are a lot of opportunities in addition to the powertrains. I think that's right. Or when it comes, for example, how we will transport, the people in the city. On one hand, we have the buses, but some hours during the day, maybe the need for a huge bus, so to say so, is maybe not that high. Then I think things like ride-hailing, ride-sharing, pooling, when it comes to this, and there you can really use new technology. Digitalization opens up a lot of opportunities to optimize in a city the traffic, because taxi is also good, no question, but with some extent, when you can get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people into one, how should I say, van, sorry, then it already reduces the traffic on the streets in the city. And there are a lot of more things which can be discussed in addition. I think it's not only one solution or one project will fits all. It's a bundle of things.
Ivo, and first of all, yeah.
Yeah, we talked in the previous session also about shared or optimization of use of assets, like a consolidation center that operates 24/24 instead of 4 hours a day. The same will be with energy assets, I think, and the recently started EU project called Assured is testing concepts of shared energy assets for truck and bus. So, sorry, it's electric, but so combined charging opportunities for both trucks and public service vehicles. So I think we will, as in CITS for the digital environment, we need to go to integrated, common and shared concepts for energy.
And just as Marc was pointing out, the whole procurement world is so complex, isn't it? I mean, would you welcome, for instance...
Well, you didn't read the Clean Vehicle Directive revision then, because it's so pure, simple, and almost beautiful. Sorry that I say it, but I'm sorry to say I was emotional when I read it. Having lived through the first Clean Vehicle Directive, having been in a lot of meetings about the topic, the new concept is actually very helpful. We have to really, with our members, we still have to form an opinion, a detailed opinion, but it looks very promising and very feasible also. And I think we are on a trajectory that is open for many technologies, that is still giving sufficient a heading, let's say, of where we want to go as a country, as a city, as a continent. So yeah, I'm in that respect. I see a light at the end of the procurement tunnel.
Good, Hakan.
Now, coming back to the question here, and then of course I'm putting my bus hat on. But I mean, if we're going to build the sustainable cities of the future, we need public transport. That's for sure, and we need public transport that is attractive. So more people will travel with public transport than private transport. And then also taking the electrical hat on, when we have electrical bus systems that are silent and emission-free, we create new opportunities for city planning, because then we can take public transport much closer to people. Today, nobody wants to have a bus stop outside of their sleeping window because it's too noisy. In the future, the electric buses will go into the shopping malls, into the hospitals. We will create new opportunities for city planning. And that is really exciting. So we start on the mission side, but it will move into the city planning. And I would say it will also move into the planning of the power system of the cities. Because when you have hundreds or thousands of buses in a city power network, then you can have a component in a smart grid system. So it's a lot of things that's going to happen that are really exciting and creates opportunities to build sustainable cities.
And there have to be these partnerships that have never been before, talking to people, talking to other players. It has to be all part of a network.
I want to add something. What the cities do today is to create low emission zones. That's the easier thing. You do nothing, just a word, low emission zone. And the poor guy who works 500 meters in that zone with an old car, he cannot come in anymore. So that's not very social. Yeah? So in fact, the solution is to come with another mobility system. Where we, at a certain moment, like Hakan was saying, you don't need a car in the city anymore. It's easier to take public transport. We see today, for example, in Antwerp, they haven't won anything yet on emissions. Of course, for their defense, it's a harbor. Yeah. And those guys use fuel that you have to heat up to make it liquid. So they are emitting a lot of bad emissions. But if you don't change the mobility system, that you have the tram, the bus, and all other modes, you will not ever reach the goals.
Question here.
Yeah, Charles Sweeney back again. Volker, the discussion as a powertrain option, do you see that vans could become maybe hybrid, as in diesel electric, to combine the two, just like what the discussion has been covering, because of the emergence of e-commerce is continuing to grow, the customer demands for delivery, the driver is under pressure to make these deliveries, and that the dual aspect of a hybrid could work just to have the diesel working in the outer environs and then switch to electric mode when it's in the congestion zone centres. And the fact that vans in general are unregulated with regard to their driver licence. You can drive in a car licence. There is no actual restriction on the driver's hours like the buses and the trucks drivers have to undertake. So it's kind of a twofold question maybe, and maybe our colleague from DG Move could reply with regard to, is there new rules and regulations coming in to maybe control van usage in some way? Please, thank you.
Yeah, this is what we know. Some years ago we also thought about which might be an opportunity for the future, and you mentioned the hybrid opportunity is since some years in place, and we know the technology quite good. On the other hand, we also know it's quite expensive, because then you have in our business where each cent counts, and you have to put a lot of weight into a van when you have both how should I say, powertrains, the combustion one and the electric one. Therefore, we come to the conclusion when it makes no sense from the current perspective, because it's that kind of expensive, extremely. On the other hand, you have to put a lot of weight in, and this is something what is a big barrier for our customers. Therefore, we thought the better approach might be to have the very efficient and also low emission powertrain in on one hand, the combustion powertrain in on the other hand, to have the pure electric driven, because then you have really zero emission from that perspective. And this is what we are currently, and not only we, but the whole industry have in their plans, from my perspective, make a lot of sense. Because otherwise, as I said, you will increase the costs tremendously, you will lose performance when it comes to transport capacity. Therefore, I think for this kind of a purpose in a van, I think it makes, from the current perspective, as far as we see, no totally different kind of a technology, not that much sense.
And Herald?
Well, it's a good question for a number of other aspects, and that was also referred to by Mr. Barbarino before. I mean, of course, we need a modal shift, because it is going to be a 50% increase in freight transport. I mean, then what will be the traffic jams and the cost of congestion that we will have around Europe, I mean, will be huge. And also health has been mentioned as well. So there I fully concur. I mean, we have a discussion ongoing now with the proposal on the first mobility package, whether vans would be indeed, let's say, under subject of certain of our legislations like the common tachograph, or the driving times and rest hours, or driving license regime, or also perhaps the Eurovignette directive. So there's quite a number of discussions ongoing there. I think all of those are building blocks that come together in order to, for us, I think, to make a mobility system that can survive in the future. And the whole discussion on powertrains is one of it. I mean, I know for the moment it's 97% diesel, and diesel Euro 6 will be contributing to it. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, wouldn't want to even contest that. But we need to build bit by bit let's say, a future for other powertrains to emerge. It will take us perhaps another 10 years. We're tackling it from all sides, whether it's procurement side, whether it's helping with investments, whether it's also on legislative sides with tailpipe. And of course, then also tailpipe will come for trucks and buses, but bit by bit in all these steps. And I think on the side of vans, yes, also there. I mean, in the end, what I would see myself as a perfect solution is all goods coming from all around the world, 70% into our ports. From there, we would try to have as much as possible on train and on inland waterway, shipped as far as possible to hinterland terminals, which are close to cities, which from there are delivered in the best possible powertrain way, according to markets, different across all of the Europe cities, whatever it will be, then making a real functional system. Because to my feeling, today, as we are, we cannot continue. I mean, not with the congestion we have and not with the, I would say, CO2 emissions we have. And vans are one component of it, just like buses are.
Well, you've just sort of answered the final question, because we're coming to an end now, and I just in 30 seconds wanted to ask you all that very question. I mean, you've given me your future vision, so that's great. I wonder whether you could do the same, to sort of looking forward to 2030, how you would see commercial vehicles in urban centres, what sort of, what would you would hope to be the picture in terms of powertrain mix?
On one hand, yeah, it's easy to talk about 2030, but how should I say? We are close to Christmas now, maybe, and then we can offer also a wish
Yeah.
to the legislators, you know, and you know, at the beginning of our, I think, the first chapter of our round here, on that podium, DG, you know, Mr. His name, Henry.
Your boss, yeah.
Was here, and he said, okay, he announced, you know, what, which is already well known, the idea and the target of the Commission, to say, okay, we will in 15, in 25 we have to achieve a reduction of 15% CO2 emission. In 30 we will then have to achieve even higher at 30 what we have then to achieve. And when you take that down to real numbers, then in our industry, it's how should I say? It's in our industry and the van industry, it's a huge amount of number. It's 50 grams which we have to reduce the CO2 emission. That's a huge amount of target which we have to achieve, which is currently in place. And when it comes to the passenger car guys, they have then to reduce 30%. Therefore, I would like to say that there's a big gap, and I think already that the achievement of the passenger car is quite ambitious, and therefore I think this is something what I would like to give the Commission as a kind of a target to discuss with us, that we can really achieve something. Because when it's more than difficult to achieve something, it's really also difficult to get the whole teams motivated to achieve a target which is that kind of far away. And as I said, it's percentage-wise, it looks like it's the same, but when you really calculate it through the real numbers, the difference is huge. There are 20, how should I say, grams between,
Okay.
and that's a huge amount of,
So
in an industry, you know.
And that, I'm glad you said you were going to say that a van was not a car, and you've managed to say it now, because you didn't at the beginning, so there you are. Marc, so it can either be a quick wish, we are talking 30 seconds, a quick wish or a quick vision.
The thing is, we have to change the tender system for electric buses. I believe it must be electric in the city. How we drive in with the hybrid could be done, but it must be electric in the city. We may not forget that in China they have a lot of electric buses, were highly subsidized. They didn't subsidize the buses, they subsidized clean air. And we don't do that in Europe. The PTA cannot pay for this, and the operator cannot pay for this. So the money have to come from somewhere else, which is not the case. And with the tender document, we work together in the UITP to rebuild the tender structure document, where we will involve PTAs to try to get them understand what is all around.
Okay, thank you. From Volvo's perspective.
The Vision 2030, we have double public transport. We have public transport that has enabled a great change in city planning. A major chunk of the city transport is certainly electric, but there are alternative drivelines. And we really got the air quality issue in our cities under control.
Thank you. And Ivo.
Okay, just to say that 2030 is longer away from us than the average lifetime of a van of 11 years, what I learned today of Mr. Jonnaert. It's also longer than the actual implementation of the euro took between the Maastricht Treaty and the euro. So a lot can happen, just to say that. Well, I think by then we as cities, we try to achieve the target of the white paper that says to go carbon neutral for urban logistics by 2030. We are then in the third reporting period of the new Clean Vehicle Directive, which is beautiful, as I said before. And we hope that some member states are doing better than the target that is in the directive, and others are on track. And also that the drivers in the vehicles and the vehicles themselves are actually informed in detail about all these issues, about where fueling infrastructure is when they can fuel, where they can fuel or charge, where they can drive or not, at what
If
times
there
of
are
day.
any drivers.
If there are still drivers, but
Yeah.
2030
They will be.
probably.
They will be, yeah.
So I think the digital environment will also have helped a lot to achieve all
Great.
this. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you all very much.